Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever wondered why men come back after no contact? You cut ties, move on, and just when you think it's over, boom, they reappear. Today, we'll dive into the psychology behind this behavior and why men often return after a period of silence. Data rays, the reason why the phrase absence makes the heart grow fonder is so commonly used, it's rooted in psychology. When someone is constantly available, their presence can sometimes be taken for granted. But when they suddenly disappear, it creates a void. That void forces the other person to reflect on what they had, and more importantly, what they lost. When you initiate no contact, you remove yourself from a man's daily life. The texts, calls, and interactions that he once experienced with you are no longer there. At first, he might enjoy the space, thinking he's free to do whatever he wants. But as time passes, he starts noticing the difference. The good morning texts are gone. The conversations that made him feel understood and valued are no longer happening. The warmth and emotional support you provided are missing. Humans naturally develop habits, and relationships create emotional patterns. If he was used to sharing his thoughts, his day, and his feelings with you, suddenly cutting that off disrupts his routine. It makes him realize just how much he relied on you, even if he didn't acknowledge it before. This realization doesn't always happen immediately. It may take days, weeks, or even months before he truly starts to feel your absence. But when it does, it often hits hard. Beyond the emotional impact, psychological studies have shown that scarcity increases value. When something is always available, it can lose its significance. But when it's taken away, people appreciate it more. This is why limited time offers in marketing create urgency. When something is rare or unavailable, people desire it more. The same applies to relationships. When you remove yourself from a man's life, he starts to see you in a new light. He begins to appreciate your qualities, your kindness, and the unique energy you brought into his world. Additionally, when you step back, it gives him the chance to reflect on the relationship without outside influence. If he was feeling uncertain before, the space allows him to truly assess his feelings. Sometimes, men don't realize how deeply they care until they experience the emptiness of not having you around. The emotional silence forces them to listen to their own hearts. In many cases, this is the moment when regret starts creeping in. He remembers the times you supported him, the laughter you shared, and the way you made him feel special. He might compare you to other people he meets and realize that no one else understands him quite the way you did. The more he reflects, the more he begins to miss you. Ultimately, absence is a powerful force. It's in that space of missing you that he starts to realize your true value. And often it's that realization that compels him to return. One of the strongest psychological triggers in men is curiosity, and when combined with ego, it becomes an unstoppable force. Men are naturally wired to seek answers, to solve mysteries, and to feel in control. When you suddenly go silent, no calls, no texts, no updates, this disrupts the pattern he's familiar with. Instead of knowing where you are, what you're thinking, and how you feel about him, he's left with uncertainty. And that uncertainty can drive him crazy. At first, he might not notice your absence too much. He may assume that you're just busy or that you'll eventually reach out. But as time passes and there's still no word from you, he begins to wonder, why hasn't she reached out? Has she moved on? Did I misjudge how much she cared? Is she seeing someone else? This curiosity starts as a simple thought, but over time it grows into an obsession. Every time he checks his phone and doesn't see a message from you, it bothers him just a little more. Every time he logs onto social media and doesn't see an update from you, he wonders what you're up to. And if he sees you looking happy, confident, and completely unbothered, that only fuels his curiosity even further. His ego takes a hit. Men by nature have an ego that thrives on feeling wanted, needed, and desired. If he believed that you were deeply attached to him, he likely assumed that you would reach out first after a breakup or a period of distance. But when you don't, that can be a serious blow to his ego. Men often expect women to chase them, especially if they were the ones to pull away first. If he distanced himself thinking you'd come running after him, your silence becomes the unexpected twist he didn't see coming. Now, instead of feeling powerful and in control, he starts to feel uneasy. He wonders if he miscalculated your feelings, if he wasn't as important to you as he thought, or worse, if you've already replaced him with someone else. Ego driven curiosity is a powerful motivator. It's why men will randomly pop back up after weeks or months of silence with a simple, "Hey, how have you been?" They may not always admit that they were wondering about you, but deep down they needed to test the waters to see if they still have an effect on you. The mystery makes you more attractive. Another key factor is that mystery is inherently attractive. When you were in contact with him, he knew exactly how you felt. But now that you've gone silent, he no longer has that certainty. You've become an enigma, a puzzle he wants to solve. Think about how human nature works. People are drawn to things they don't fully understand. If he was once used to having full access to your emotions and now finds himself shut out, he will naturally be drawn back to figure out why. Even if he wasn't planning on returning, his curiosity alone might pull him back, and the more he wonders about you, the more he begins to remember the good times. His ego wants confirmation that he still matters to you, but when you don't give him that validation easily, he feels the need to seek it out himself. That's often when you'll notice him trying to start conversations, checking your social media, or even accidentally liking an old post. These are all subtle ways of testing if you're still thinking about him, because in his mind you should be. At its core, a man's curiosity combined with his ego creates an irresistible pull. The more he wonders about you, the more he misses you. The more his ego is challenged, the more he feels the urge to prove that he still has a place in your life. And before he knows it, he's the one chasing after you. Fear is one of the most powerful emotions that drive human behavior. And when a man starts to believe he might lose you forever, it triggers a strong reaction. At first, after no contact, he might feel confident, thinking he has the upper hand. He may assume that you'll reach out eventually, that you'll miss him too much to stay away, or that you're just taking time to cool off. But as days turn into weeks and still no word from you, a shift happens. That initial confidence starts to fade, and uncertainty begins to creep in. Instead of feeling in control, he starts questioning everything. What if she's actually done with me? Has she found someone better? Did I make a mistake by letting her go? Men by nature have a strong instinct to protect and claim what they see as valuable. When a man starts sensing that he is about to lose something precious, his survival instincts kick in. And in relationships, that instinct translates into an urgent need to act before it's too late. The fear of being replaced, one of the biggest fears men have, is the idea of being replaced. Even if he wasn't fully sure about the relationship before, the thought of you moving on without him, being with someone else, or no longer needing him can be unsettling. If you were always available in the past, always the one to reach out first, or to try and fix things, he may have taken your presence for granted. He may have assumed that no matter what, you would always be there. But when you go no contact, you break that pattern, and suddenly is faced with the reality that you are not waiting around for him. This realization can be a serious wake-up call. The more he thinks about you with someone else, the more urgent it feels to do something about it. Even if he wasn't planning on reaching out, the fear of seeing you move on could push him to take action. Loss triggers emotional reflection. When a man believes he is losing you for good, it forces him to reflect on the relationship in ways he may not have done before. As long as he felt like he had you, he might not have taken the time to truly appreciate you. But when he feels that he's losing you, his mind starts replaying the good memories. He remembers your smile, your laughter, the way you made him feel special. He thinks about the times you stood by his side, supported him, and genuinely cared for him. The same things he may have overlooked or undervalued before suddenly become clear. It's human nature to focus on the positives when we lose something. And in many cases, this leads to regret. He might start thinking, I should have treated her better, or I shouldn't have pushed her away. That regret, combined with the fear of losing you for good, often leads to one conclusion: he needs to reach out before it's too late. Time makes him realize what he took for granted. When you go no contact, you give a man something he doesn't expect: silence. And that silence speaks louder than words. It forces him to sit with his own thoughts instead of being distracted by the usual routine. Without your presence, he starts to notice all the little things that made you special. He realizes that no one else checks on him the way you did, that conversations with other people don't feel as deep, and that life without you feels emptier than he expected. This realization doesn't always happen overnight. It can take weeks or even months. But the longer he goes without hearing from you, the more he starts to recognize your true value. And once that fear of losing you completely takes over, he often finds himself drawn back to you, not out of convenience, but out of the genuine realization that he doesn't want to let you go. One of the strongest forces that can pull a man back after no contact is nostalgia. Nostalgia has a way of filtering out the negative experiences and highlighting the good times, making people feel sentimental and longing for what once was. When a man is left alone with his thoughts after a breakup or a period of separation, he starts to reminisce. He might not have realized it at first, but as time passes, certain memories start resurfacing: memories of laughter, deep conversations, shared experiences, and moments that made him feel truly connected to you. At first, he might try to brush these feelings aside. He may distract himself with work, friends, or even dating someone new. But nostalgia is persistent. It sneaks up on him at unexpected times: when he hears a song that reminds him of you, visits a place you once went together, or even comes across an old picture of the two of you. Suddenly, those small moments he once took for granted become significant again. While nostalgia hits harder over time, immediately after a breakup or separation, emotions can be clouded by frustration, resentment, or a sense of relief. But as time goes on, those emotions tend to fade, while the good memories become more prominent. This is because the human brain is wired to remember emotional experiences, especially those tied to deep connections. Men in particular are not always the best at processing emotions in the moment. While women may talk about their feelings with friends or journal their emotions, men often suppress them. They may not fully process what they've lost until they are alone with their thoughts, and that's when nostalgia starts creeping in. He remembers how safe and comfortable he felt around you. He thinks about the way you used to laugh at his jokes, even the bad ones. He recalls the way you supported him through tough times. He misses the way you looked at him with admiration and care. Over time, these thoughts build up and create an emotional attachment that wasn't as obvious before. What he once took for granted now feels irreplaceable. The emotional imprint you left on him: every relationship leaves an imprint on a person, shaping their experiences and expectations. If you played a significant role in his life, that emotional connection doesn't just disappear. Even if he tries to move on, there will always be moments when he compares new experiences to the ones he had with you. He might start dating someone new, but something will feel off: maybe the way she talks, the way she handles conflicts, or the way she doesn't quite understand him the way you did. That comparison makes him realize that what you two had was unique. The emotional imprint you left isn't just about the good times, though. It's about the deep connection you shared, the little inside jokes, the way you knew what he was thinking before he even said it. That kind of bond isn't easy to find again. And when he realizes that, it can make him long for you even more. Memories trigger a desire to rekindle once nostalgia sets in. It doesn't just stop at reminiscing. It often leads to a strong desire to relive those moments. He may start wondering, what if we gave it another chance? Maybe we were actually good together, and I didn't see it at the time. I miss the way things used to be. Can we get that back? That's when he might start reaching out, whether through a simple hey, I was just thinking about you text or something more indirect like liking an old photo on social media. He's testing the waters, seeing if there's still a connection, because deep down, nostalgia has convinced him that what you shared was meaningful. Emotional attachment is not something that fades easily, especially when a relationship had real depth. And once a man starts feeling nostalgic, it often becomes the driving force behind his return. One of the most powerful reasons men return after no contact is the undeniable change they see in you. When a woman chooses to walk away and focus on herself instead of chasing after a man, she steps into a phase of personal growth and transformation. This shift is often unexpected for him, and it triggers a reaction that he never saw coming. He starts feeling drawn back to you. At first, he might have assumed that you would stay the same, that you would wait for him, or that you would struggle without him. But when no contact forces him to step away and observe from a distance, he begins to see a version of you that he didn't expect, a woman who is glowing, independent, and completely unbothered by his absence. Men are attracted to confidence and self-sufficiency. Confidence is one of the most attractive qualities a person can have, and nothing screams confidence more than a woman who chooses herself over waiting for someone else. When a man sees that you are no longer emotionally dependent on him, it shakes his perception of you. You are no longer the woman who used to overthink his every move. You are no longer waiting for his approval or attention. You are no longer the person who begged for closure or tried to fix what was broken. Instead, you are focusing on your happiness, pursuing your goals, and living a life that excites you. And this shift in energy makes him wonder, did I misjudge her? Did I make a mistake by letting her go? This is where the paradox happens. When you were overly available and emotionally invested, he may have taken you for granted. But now that you've pulled away and leveled up, he starts seeing you as someone he doesn't want to lose. Your silence forces him to reflect on his own growth or lack of it. During the no contact period, something else happens. He starts to compare your growth with his own. If he sees that you've become stronger, happier, and more fulfilled while he has remained the same or even regressed, it sparks insecurity within him. You've been hitting the gym while he's still stuck in the same routine. You've been traveling, learning new things, and exploring new opportunities while he's still doing the same things he did before. You've been socializing, making new connections, and expanding your world while his life hasn't changed much. When he realizes that you are becoming a better version of yourself without him, it stirs something deep inside him. It makes him question why he isn't growing at the same pace and, more importantly, why he wasn't enough to keep you around. Men are drawn to what they can't have. Another psychological trigger that happens when you transform during no contact is that you become someone who is no longer easily accessible to him. When you were in his life, he had a certain level of control over the situation. He knew that you cared, that you were emotionally invested, and that he could reach out whenever he wanted. But after no contact, he sees a new reality. You are no longer waiting for him. You are not seeking his validation. You are not chasing after him. And that change makes him see you differently. People are naturally wired to want what they cannot have. And your newfound confidence makes you seem like a prize he suddenly needs to win back. Your energy feels different. One of the most powerful things about growth is that it changes your energy. Before, your energy might have been anxious, needy, or overly invested in him. But after no contact, if you've truly worked on yourself, your energy shifts into something magnetic. You radiate self love and confidence. You are no longer carrying emotional baggage. You have a sense of peace that doesn't depend on external validation. This shift is something he feels, even if you're not directly speaking to him. When he sees or hears about you from mutual friends, when he checks your social media, or even when he randomly thinks about you, that energy change is noticeable. And this is what makes him want to return, not because you are the same person he left, but because you have evolved into someone even more desirable than before. One of the biggest reasons men return after no contact is the shift in the emotional dynamic between the two of you. When you were in constant contact, emotions were running high. There may have been tension, misunderstandings, or even unspoken resentment. But once you step away and create emotional distance, something powerful happens. The reset button is pressed. At first, he might not notice this shift. He may even enjoy the silence, thinking that the space will help him breathe or give him clarity. But as time passes, that emotional distance starts to feel uncomfortable for him. The version of you that was once predictable, always there, always emotionally engaged, has disappeared. Instead, there is silence, and in that silence, he is forced to sit with his own thoughts and emotions. How emotional distance shifts his perspective. When a relationship is emotionally intense, it's easy to get caught up in the heat of the moment. Arguments feel bigger than they are, misunderstandings become personal, and small annoyances can overshadow the love that once existed. But when you step away, the emotional fog starts to lift. The arguments that once seemed so important suddenly feel insignificant. The flaws he focused on before don't seem as bad anymore. The things he took for granted now feel like things he deeply misses. Emotional distance gives him the chance to see things from a fresh perspective. It allows him to process his feelings without the influence of immediate emotions, and this can make him realize that what you shared was more valuable than he initially thought. Time away makes him question his own decisions. If he was the one who pulled away or ended things, he likely did so thinking that it was the right choice at the time. But as time passes, doubt starts creeping in. Did I make the right decision? Was I too harsh or impulsive? Did I let go of something good without realizing it? When emotions settle, logic takes over, and he begins to analyze the situation from a rational perspective. He starts thinking about what led to the separation and whether his actions were justified. If he realizes that his decision was made in the heat of the moment or out of fear, regret starts to settle in. This is especially true if he expected you to reach out first. If he thought you would chase him, but instead you maintained your distance, it forces him to reevaluate his assumptions about your dynamic. He may have expected you to crumble without him, but when you don't, it makes him wonder if he underestimated your strength and value. He starts to miss the emotional bond beyond nostalgia. Emotional distance makes a man truly feel the absence of the emotional bond he once had with you. Even if he didn't always express it, relationships provide a level of emotional security, comfort, and connection that isn't easily replaced. The late night talks you shared, where he felt safe opening up. The little inside jokes that made him laugh even on bad days. The way you could sense when something was wrong without him having to say it. Men often don't realize the depth of emotional connection until it's no longer there. Unlike women, who tend to process emotions as they feel them, men often suppress or distract themselves from emotions until they no longer have a choice but to face them. Emotional distance forces him to acknowledge the depth of his feelings, and it can make him realize that he had something meaningful with you. The longer he goes without that emotional connection, the more he starts to crave it again. Resetting the dynamic no contact isn't just about creating space, it's about resetting the dynamic between you and him. If the relationship had become unbalanced, with you giving more than you were receiving, stepping back allows you to reclaim your power. Before no contact, he may have felt like he had all the control. He knew he could reach out when he wanted, that you would always be there, that he didn't have to put in much effort. But after no contact, the script flips. Now he is the one wondering where you are and what you're thinking. Now he is the one who has to decide if he wants to take action. Now he realizes that he might actually lose you. This shift in power makes a huge difference. Instead of being the one constantly seeking validation or chasing after love, you have created a situation where he has to work to regain what he lost. And that's when a man often returns not because of manipulation, but because the emotional distance has made him see things more clearly than ever before. One of the most compelling psychological triggers that pull a man back after no contact is curiosity. When you go silent and remove yourself from his world, he is left in a position where he no longer has access to you, your emotions, or your life. This lack of information creates a sense of mystery, and for many men, that mystery becomes something they cannot ignore. At first, he may not notice the silence. He might even assume that you'll eventually reach out or that he has full control over the situation. But as time passes and he realizes that you are not making any attempts to communicate, something shifts. He starts wondering, what is she doing? Is she thinking about me? Has she moved on already? This curiosity doesn't just fade, it intensifies over time. The more he doesn't know, the more he wants to know. The longer he goes without hearing from you, the more questions fill his mind. The fear of the unknown. Human beings have a natural need for closure. When something is left unresolved, it creates an internal tension that makes people want to seek answers. This is why cliffhangers in movies or books keep people hooked, because they need to know what happens next. When a man suddenly finds himself in a position where he doesn't know where he stands with you anymore, it unsettles him. Before, he knew exactly how you felt about him. Before, he knew that if he reached out, you would respond. Before, he had a sense of certainty about your emotions. But now, all of that has changed. Suddenly, he isn't sure anymore, and that lack of certainty starts to eat away at him. The idea that you might be moving on without him, that you might be seeing someone new, or that you are genuinely happy without him can be a tough pill to swallow. Even if he wasn't planning on coming back, the simple fact that he doesn't know what's going on with you can make him want to re-enter your life just to find out. Social media and the what if factor in today's world. Social media plays a massive role in feeding curiosity. Even if you're not directly speaking to him, he might be keeping tabs on your social media, looking for clues about your life. If you're posting happy pictures, he might wonder if you're truly over him. If you're traveling, hanging out with new people, or looking better than ever, he might start to regret letting you go. If you're completely silent and not posting at all, that might drive his curiosity even more, because now he has no idea what's happening in your world. Curiosity is a powerful force because it creates scenarios in his mind. He starts imagining all the possibilities, and often his own thoughts start working against him. Even if nothing major has changed, the simple fact that he doesn't have access to you anymore makes him think that everything has changed. Men hate feeling replaced. Another aspect of curiosity is the fear of being replaced. Even if he wasn't fully sure about the relationship before, the idea that you might be entertaining someone new can trigger a competitive instinct in him. What if another guy is making her laugh the way I used to? What if she's found someone who treats her better than I did? What if I was just a chapter in her life and now she's on to something better? Even if he doesn't necessarily want to be with you, The thought of another man filling his place can push him to reach out just to see if he still has a chance. The reverse psychology of no contact. There's a psychological effect that happens when someone withdraws their attention. The moment you stop giving someone your energy, they start craving it. This is why people tend to value what is scarce and overlook what is readily available. Before no contact, he may have been comfortable knowing that you were always there. But when you remove yourself from the equation, it forces him to recognize that your presence was never guaranteed, it was a privilege. The more he sees that you are happy without him, the more he wants to be part of that happiness. The more he realizes that you don't need him, the more he wants to be needed. The more he wonders about you, the more his curiosity turns into action. Curiosity is one of the most underestimated emotions in human psychology. It has the power to make people take action, even when they initially didn't intend to. And when a man is left wondering about you, about what you're doing and how you're feeling, that curiosity becomes the first step toward him making a move to reconnect. When a man returns after no contact, it's rarely just one reason, it's a combination of emotions, realizations, and psychological triggers that pull him back in. Nostalgia makes him long for the good times, emotional attachment reminds him of the bond you shared, and curiosity makes him desperate to know what's changed. Your personal growth, confidence, and emotional distance create a powerful shift in the dynamic, making him see you in a new light. But the real question isn't why he comes back, it's whether you still want him back. No contact isn't just about making him miss you, it's about giving yourself the space to grow, heal, and see if he truly deserves a place in your life again. So when he does return, the power is in your hands. Do you let him back in? Or do you realize that you've outgrown him? The choice is yours.